Imagine moving into an old house and finding a dusty box in the attic. At first, it looks like somebody else's life. Old letters, faded pictures, legal papers, family names you don't even know. You almost close the box because you think, this has nothing to do with me. But then you keep reading and you find out why the house was built. You discover what happened before you got there. You learn there was a promise made years before you were born. You find a record of pain, betrayal, rescue, sacrifice, and inheritance. Suddenly, that old box is no longer just old history. It explains the ground you are standing on. And that's a helpful way to understand the Old Testament and the New Testament. You see, the Old Testament is not just old religious material, it's the backstory of the world we live in. It explains why life feels beautiful and broken at the same time. It explains why people can love deeply and still hurt each other. It explains why we want justice when someone hurts us, but mercy when we are the ones who failed. It explains why a person can have success, comfort, and intention, but still feel empty inside. The Old Testament has 39 books. Most of it was written in Hebrew with a little Aramaic. It includes history, poetry, law, prayers, wisdom, kings, prophets, failure, judgment, mercy, and hope. But the point is not just to learn the ancient facts. The point is to see what God is showing us about Himself and about us. You see, when the Bible talks about God's covenant with Israel, it is fair to ask, why does that matter to me? I live in America. I'm not in ancient Israel. I'm not walking through the desert with Moses. I'm not offering sacrifices. I have bills, stress, family problems, regrets, and real life happening right now. And that question makes sense. The answer is not that you're supposed to pretend you are Israel. The answer is that God used Israel to begin a rescue story that was always meant to reach the entire world. God told Abraham that through his family, all nations would be blessed. And that matters because all nations means the promise was bigger than just one place, one bloodline, or one generation. From the beginning, God was moving toward people everywhere. And that includes us, you and me. You see, then you get the Exodus, and Israel is trapped in Egypt under a power that they cannot defeat. God hears their cry and brings them out. You may not be enslaved in Egypt, but you know what it feels like to be trapped by something stronger than yourself. You see, fear can trap a person. Shame can trap a person. Addiction, anger, bitterness, depression, and regret can all become prisons. The Exodus shows us that God sees people who cannot free themselves. Then God gives Israel the law. A lot of people get lost there because they hear commandments, sacrifices, priests, and purity rules, and they think that has nothing to do with me. But the law shows something we still need to understand today. It shows that God is holy, it shows that sin is serious, and it shows that right and wrong are not just personal opinions. It also shows that rules can tell you what is right, but rules cannot heal your heart by themselves. You already know that from your own life. You can know you should forgive and still hold the grudge. You can know you should be honest and still hide the truth. You can know that you should trust God and still lie awake at night worrying. You see, the Old Testament is honest about that gap. It shows us that the human problem is deeper than bad behavior. We need more than instruction. We need rescue. And I think that's why the sacrifices mattered. They may sound strange to us now in modern times, but they carried a serious message. Sin has weight. Guilt does not vanish because we ignore it. Brokenness does not heal because we pretend it is not there. But those sacrifices were never the final answer. They pointed forward to something greater. They were saying, in their own way, something greater is coming. And that's where the New Testament comes in. The New Testament has 27 books. It was written in Greek in the first century. It begins with Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four accounts of Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Then Acts shows us the message of Jesus spreading. The letters teach believers how to follow Christ in real life. Revelation ends with the promise that evil will not have the final word and God will make all things new. But the center of the New Testament is not a system. It is Jesus. Jesus is where the whole story comes together. He enters Israel's story, but he does not come only for Israel. He comes through Israel for the world. He fulfills the promises. He carries the meaning of the sacrifices. He becomes the true king, the final sacrifice, and the way back to the Father. Now, in the Old Testament, people needed priests to stand between them and God. But in the New Testament, Jesus brings the people directly to the Father. In the Old Testament, sacrifices were offered again and again. In the New Testament, Jesus gives himself once and for all. In the Old Testament, kings kept failing. In the New Testament, Jesus comes as the king who does not use people, crush the weak, or protect his own comfort. He lays down his life. And that's why this matters today. You see, the Old Testament shows the wound. The New Testament shows the healer. The Old Testament shows why the world is broken. The New Testament shows what God has done about it. The Old Testament says humanity needs rescue. The New Testament says the rescuer has come, and his name is Jesus. And this is not just about ancient people in ancient places. It's about a person today who feels guilty and does not know how to start over. It's about the person who keeps falling into the same patterns and wonders if real change is possible. It's about the person who looks fine on the outside, but feels spiritually empty inside. It's about anyone who has ever wondered, can God still reach me? And the answer is yes. You do not have to understand every ancient custom before Jesus matters to your life. You do not have to know every king's name before grace becomes real. Start with the heart of it. The Old Testament explains why we need God. The New Testament shows how far God came to bring us home. So the Old Testament and New Testament are not two dead sections of an old book. They are one living history. God created, people turned away. God promised, God prepared. Jesus came, Jesus died, Jesus rose, and now mercy is offered to people like us. And this is why it matters whether you live in Israel, America, or anywhere else. If you need forgiveness, strength, truth, mercy, hope, and a way back to God, this story is not far from you. It has reached you. Hope that makes it a little bit more understandable, and I hope you all have a beautiful day. My name is Douglas Vandergraph, and I believe in Jesus Christ. God bless every single one of you. Every single one. Bye-bye.